Alex, I haven't bought any Christmas gifts yet.
Oh God, neither have I. Wait, no, I bought one, but that's it. I only bought one.
So-
Are we fucked?
no, it's Monday and everything's on Amazon.
That's true. And the one gift I did buy was off Amazon, so I'm already using the system as intended.
Yeah, it's one of those. I was talking about this over the weekend. I was at like various pre-holiday things.
Hmm.
Like this weekend was people sneaking in friend holiday parties before family stuff takes over for whatever it is you celebrate, whether it's Christmas or the various other related December holidays that occur throughout the month. But it made dawned upon me at those parties. Oh no, I need to get some expedited shipping on something, lots of somethings soon.
Yeah, yeah. So I bought my girlfriend's main gift, and I was gonna get her a smaller thing too, and that's usually kind of our the way we do Christmas. Uh, I don't usually buy like my parents and I like we're not really big on gift giving. Like we call each other, we celebrate the holidays that way, and have conversations, but like we haven't really exchanged gifts with each other in years.
The fact that
Uh,
you still enjoy each other's company is the greatest gift of all.
in a way, yes. That is the greatest of Christmas miracles.
Yeah, I don't have to buy a ton of stuff, but I have to buy some stuff, and I should
Yeah,
probably work on that some stuff.
yeah. You should buy a few things at least.
Yeah, I'll
Got to
just,
keep capitalism moving, man. Got to keep that economy going.
exactly. Yeah, I do that to support the United States of America. It's my patriotic duty. It has nothing to do with the expectations of the people around me. That's what it is.
They don't matter. America matters.
That's true. That's true. Um, what about your weekend? Did your weekend matter?
Not really. No. It was sort of a lost weekend. I was still sick through most of the weekend.
You sound
I never
slightly better
got.
though. On the road to
I do
recovery.
feel slightly better as of last night. I never got super sick. Like I never got over that hump of the bad throat stuff. So I wasn't feverish or anything. I wasn't like completely screwed. I just that throat was bad for several days, and then finally, as of last night, it started to get a little better. So I stayed home primarily. I did not really do a whole hell of a lot this weekend. I did play some more Dragon Age. I don't know what I'm missing. I feel like I'm missing something with that game. Like it's just not hitting for me in the way that I would like it to. But then in reality, I had this problem with other BioWare games before, and I think I just am not tuned to the wavelength that those games tend to be. I think that BioWare RPGs are exquisitely detailed, obviously deep, well-made games that just don't appeal to me especially.
I mean, they have a certain style, a certain approach to characters, world building. I mean, there are through lines between especially for we talk the Mass Effect age of these games. Like there's some commonalities to them that whatever that new IP is being worked on, you'll see it in that one too. I get that. I
Yeah.
think that's just how modern BioWare makes video games. And while I think it may be difficult for us to necessarily articulate what it is you're talking about, I sort of know what you mean.
Yeah, it's just there's a certain dryness to it that I think if I was just a little bit more invested in the lore of that world, I think if I was a little bit more willing to kind of engage with the combat, it just parts of it just don't jive with my sensibilities as someone who plays video games, and I think that is entirely on me, and that is fine. I will never begrudge someone for loving that BioWare stuff because I can totally see what the appeal of it is. I think I am just not the person for it, and that's okay. Like I'll probably play a little bit more of it. I don't see myself sinking 100 hours into that game, but I could probably see myself getting a solid 25 out of it before I move on to something else, and that's fine. There's something to that.
You probably could just switch that game to easy and just coast through it.
Oh,
And
I don't think it's hard at all. Like I haven't had like a
no,
difficult
I'm
time
not
with
even
it.
suggesting that you would have any difficulty with because if anything, the normal difficulty feels like the easy difficulty at
Yeah, it's
times.
not
But
hard.
if you wanted to just see the story, you probably could cease worrying about anything else and just run through that game if you wanted to. But that
Yeah.
maybe that's not super appealing.
Yeah, I don't know. There's other games I'd rather probably be playing. weirdly enough, one of those games ended up being GTA 5, which I did not expect to touch too much beyond just sort of getting a feel for the new stuff and seeing how it was. And I am sinking like 6 hours into that game this weekend that I did not intend to at all. That was a game last year that did not make it onto my top 10 list that I sort of it kind of willfully forgot about after a certain point, because once I'd finished the story of that game, I was like, I just don't want to play this anymore. But when the new version came around, I was like, all right, I might as well give this a shot after hearing everyone talk about the visuals and how much the first-person experience of that game changed it for them. And, you know, I messed with it a little bit before I came out here, and I definitely, I was like, this first-person thing actually works. I normally don't care about this stuff, but this actually is pretty cool. And then last Saturday night, I ended up playing a whole bunch of it. And, man, if the writing in that game were better, if, like, the jokes in that game, like, landed with greater frequency and it actually managed to do, you know, like tell a story that I actually cared about, I could have really loved that game, because there are parts of that game that are awesome. I more so even than any other GTA game, and this has been the case in all GTA games, but especially with this one, that game's sense of humor just drove me up the fucking wall. Like, I just could not get behind any of the jokes it was going for. I did not like any of the characters, really. I just couldn't get into it that way.
Yeah, I was the exact same way. I'm also still freaking out about the ghost that's now in your room.
Oh, did the door open? Oh yeah,
sure.
There's a cat. There's a cat on the floor.
Yeah, whatever you want to call that ghost.
Right.
You call your ghost cats. That's fine. You do whatever you have to do.
Those cats.
Yeah, I didn't. You know, I thought Trevor was interesting. I thought some of the character arcs were interesting, but it was yet another Rockstar game that, whatever it had going for it, was brutalized by the fact that it goes on for so long, in which they just stretch character arcs so incredibly thin that whatever sort of interesting veneers they had were lost 20 hours ago.
There's also not really much of an arc to most of those characters.
Nope.
Like, Michael has maybe like a little bit of development, but like nothing really happens to Franklin other than him witnessing a bunch of idiots doing terrible things, and Trevor's just a psychopath the entire way through, which I get. That's fine. That's what they're going for. It just didn't do it for me. And I don't know. You know, it's like, I think a lot of the criticism about that game is pretty spot on. It is super fun if you just treat it as a really violent playground. If you're just willing to sort of accept that and roll with it, like the amount of stuff you can do in that game and the variety of it is pretty spectacular. I just wish I liked the stuff built around that playground more.
Yeah, and as someone in the chat points out, it is criminal how poorly they use Lamar, who I think is probably the most interesting character in the game, and is given, is instead given. We've talked about this, I think, when that game came out.
Yeah.
But is essentially given player surrogate status. He's sort of the stand-in, like, you guys, you white people are crazy, and. Yeah. It's unfortunate, because I think, like, the relationship he has with his family, the relationship he has was it his cousin?
I think so, yeah.
Like all that stuff I wanted to learn more about, because he was the most grounded character in that game. Like, he came from a background that, is not necessarily relatable to me, but is one that I, in some ways see in the real world, even if it's exaggerated in the playground that is Grand Theft Auto. Whereas, like, Trevor is just a complete psychopath, and Michael, is just a rich asshole, like, that I have zero sympathy for.
He's a huge rich asshole with a family that is written just about as shrilly as human possible, and I understand.
We're Franklin.
Franklin. You're thinking of Franklin. Lamar is his friend.
Is Lamar the cousin?
It's his friend. It's his best buddy,
friend?
Dude.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I meant Franklin. But
Lamar's funny, but Lamar's definitely not the key character on that. Yeah, I think Franklin was kind of a wasted opportunity. Like, yes, you're right. He is definitely like the player surrogate character, but like, his arc just goes nowhere in a way that is really depressing. Like, it feels like he just sort of accidentally wandered into a Grand Theft Auto game and just kind of didn't know what to make of any of it, and that could be done well, but his story itself is just not interesting enough for what they're trying to get across. And Michael is just horrible, and his family is horrible, and whatever commentary they're trying to make about making those people so horrible just gets lost in a lot of really bad jokes. And it's a shame, because, like I said, there's so much fun in that game to be had. when you do the heists in that game, you see like I think honestly the apex of what like Grand Theft Auto gameplay can be when that stuff is kind of firing on all cylinders. But like we've talked about before, there weren't necessarily enough of those heists in that game to make it worthwhile.
Yeah. So what was it about? Were you actually playing the story again?
Yeah, I'm just playing. I started doing some story missions, but then I also just kind of like would just drive around the world and cause mayhem as one does. And I really like doing that stuff in first person. Like I normally I don't care about the third person versus first person perspective, but doing the cutscenes and doing combat stuff in first person kind of gives you a whole new perspective on the horrible shit that you are wreaking upon this world.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly read a fair amount about that, and I'm curious to see how that plays out when, I'll dump back into that game with the PC version early next year, and there's been some indications from Take-Two and Rockstar that some additional single-player content may be on the way for GTA sometime in 2016 or 2015, which would make sense because you've put out this current gen version of those games. Now you want to support them with more content, so I thought maybe that single-player expansion stuff might come sooner, but it also makes a lot of sense to wait so you can put it out on all platforms and make a big deal of it. But yeah, that first-person stuff certainly seems it doesn't make some of your actions seem so cartoonish.
No, it doesn't. When you are literally stomping on a person's face from the first person, it is kind of hard to ignore the fact that you are just stomping on someone's face. And, I mean, that's what that game is, and that's fine. I'm just saying, it makes you think, oh man, what am I doing here? Holy hell.
Yeah, and then it makes it too bad for some of the sequences that might be more powerful in first person that I believe have not been converted. They made it so that all of the vehicles and they put a lot of work into a first person mode that is totally commendable for what is essentially a port. But things like the torture sequence in that game, which
I haven't gotten that far.
My understanding is that it's not. You can't do that in first person because that is sort of a interactive event that takes place in the third person. But that's one of those that probably would have benefited is probably the wrong word, but it certainly would have made the experience different if you had experienced it from that perspective, for sure.
Yeah. So that was kind of my weekend. That was what I ended up playing for the most part. Yeah, I don't know. If you play GTA 5 and you like GTA 5, I think there actually is ample reason to perhaps go back and play through one of these newer versions. Maybe also wait for the PC version because, we all know what the modding community tends to do to that game. It should be fun.
Yeah, and the rumor is that the Max Payne 3 team is working on that PC port, and Max Payne 3 was a tremendous PC version of that game, a game I didn't particularly care for, but it was a really good PC version. And so if that is the case...
I like Max Payne 3.
I didn't dislike Max Payne 3, but I didn't like Max Payne 3.
I mean, it was definitely, Max on Fire, the video game, and that was fine, but I appreciated that they were at least going for that aesthetic, and they really went for it.
They did. They absolutely made the game they wanted to make. It just didn't really jive with me.
Yeah,
but, so that's most of the games you played this weekend?
Yeah, for the most part. What about you? How was your weekend?
I intended to play a bunch of Dragon Age, but the end game, which is a weird way to phrase it, but it's true. The end game of Captain Toad has way more to it than I anticipated. I got through most.
I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, I got through most of collecting everything. I collected everything in episode 1, 2, and 3. The game is split into 3 chapters, and then there's a series of bonus stages that are unlocked in sort of a amalgamation of various stages, some of which are culled from Super Mario 3D World, and instead you go through them as Toad, and so you can't jump, and the way you get through them is slightly different. But then there are these kind of unique spins they put on some of the existing stages you already play in Captain Toad. Or for example, there are a series of stages in which you have to collect other Toads and get them to the exit. So it makes your path to getting to the exit a little more complicated because you have 4 guys behind you. So you have to be more careful about enemies and the various obstacles and things of that nature. There's another set of stages which involve this little mummy character following you, and the mummy mimics your actions. So you have to always be moving. You can never stop. And in order to collect all the coins and things like that, you have to be essentially planning out your path in advance so that you can make sure you can kind of sweep through and get everything you need to not only finish the stage, but more often finish the sort of bonus objective. And there was one of those involving the dragon boss that took me 2 hours to finish because
Wow.
the intricacy of figuring out exactly how you need to trick this guy when he's following you, or rather trick yourself because he's, again, following your exact path in the way that corresponds with the obstacles around you, took me 30-plus lives, 2+ hours. It was extremely satisfying when I did it, but just took an enormous amount of time for me to finish. And I thought for sure that was going to be the toughest thing that I encountered in that game. That when I got over that hump, it's like, cool, all right, there's going to be a couple more stages, but I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to be able to close the book on Toad because at this, I'm this far in, I'm going to 100% it. And then I got to the Mummy Me Maze Forever stage, in which you have, again, this character following you, this little mummy that mimics your actions, but you have to go through these randomly generated, for lack of a better term, roguelike. Like, it's just, you have to go through 50 stages in which you are going through these mazes, and the trick to these mazes is that not only is this guy following you, but as you get deeper into the maze, more of them follow you. So you will have 2, 3, I got up to 4 staggered mirror versions of yourself that are constantly chasing you because they're following your exact actions. And so that means that any time that you make a wrong turn in that maze, you have to account for the fact that you may have a version of yourself from 3 seconds ago trailing you. So you have to make sure that your curves, your arcs of you making a turnaround are such that you're accounting for 3 or 4 seconds of your previous actions. And you have to do this over 50 stages, and as soon as you die, you have to do it all over again.
I've had nightmares exactly like that.
It's intense. I have tried it.
Maybe shadow versions of myself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I do at night for 2 hours. I just walk around the living room, just having these shadow versions chase me. It never ends. Does it end?
Man, the Midwest sounds terrifying. I don't know, man.
So yeah, it's brutal, and what makes it sort of even crazier is that you kind of have to play with a. So I'm playing it with basically a claw, because the way that the gamepad is set up, I need to be constantly manipulating the camera at all times as well, because if you were to move the camera directly above you, then you can't see, there's all these bricks, and it's not easy to see which bricks have bricks missing so that you can continue through the maze, right? Like, it's not, you have to be constantly manipulating the camera and using the perspective, because that's all basically what that game is manipulating perspective to find your way through. Now, in addition, it's not just that you have these ghosts chasing you. There are enemies all throughout these stages, and some of them are kind of stay where they're, they're kind of static. They're they're Goombas. You don't have to worry about them too much. Other ones are the guys who smash through the stage. So you have to constantly deal with your mirror versions of yourself, plus enemies, plus manipulating the camera. And some of the enemies are really aggressive, which means that you need to tap the screen in order to temporarily disable them. So you're constantly switching between moving the camera, tapping these enemies. It's complete insanity.
At some point, I fell off the tracks while you were describing all of that. I just fell off the train, and it did not come back to get me. That all sounds remarkably complicated for a game that is a fucking Captain Toad game.
And I made it to stage 40, which means if I can make it to stage 40, I can make the stage 50. So I can do it, but the amount of effort you have to put in to get to some of those late stages is... I think the solution might be, I might have to have my wife play the game with me and just have her tap the screen.
Oh boy.
That is the obstacle I was running into in some of the final stages, in which I would just have 9 enemies on screen at once, and I'm trying to keep the 4 mirror versions of me in check while also figuring out where I need to move in the maze, but then also having to keep the 15, 20 enemies in the stage. Alex, it's a lot. That Captain Toad gets tough as shit. Don't let anyone tell you that game is easy.
That is a lot of plates to spin, man.
It means they have not played deep enough. They have not gone dark enough down the road of Captain Toad to experience what I've seen. I've seen things.
Well, I've seen nothing of that game yet, so I have no real opinion of it other than it looks cute, and I will probably play it eventually. But yeah, that sounds hellish. Is the word I'm going to use?
If you want to do everything in that game is easily 20 plus hours. Easily.
But that's if you want to do everything.
Yeah.
Most people aren't going to do everything.
Yeah, you're monsters.
Why are you lumping me into this? I said most people. I didn't say me.
Well, you haven't played it yet, so I don't know. I don't know which side you're on, Mr. I owned an N64.
Okay, how is that a point of contention here? Why is that a thing?
Because I'm looking for anything I can to throw back in your face.
That's fair. I understand that. There were a lot of people in the comments of our show from Monday that were all like, "Oh man, Patrick, giving him the stink eye before," and I was like, "What's the stink eye? Why is there a stink eye about owning an N64? Why is that?"
It's not owning an N64. Lots of people own an N64. It's only owning an N64.
I was a teenager. I couldn't be out there buying consoles all willy-nilly. I couldn't just like I didn't have that kind of money.
Did you ever own a Saturn?
No.
That's fair.
And I did eventually own a PlayStation. It just I had to wait for it to drop rather precipitously in price before I could go out and buy one.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So yeah, my weekend was Saturday going down this toad hole, which is don't do that. Don't go down the toad hole.
Toad hole.
It's gross.
Total.
It's gross. I don't like that term either.
Yeah, you said it. I didn't invent that. You did.
So I did that, and then I had to go to a Christmas party, and then there were a lot of really good football games on Sunday as we head into a lot of games counting for a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So I didn't do anything on Sunday before I had to go to another Christmas dinner, except to watch football, and so I didn't get to play any Dragon Age, but I'm hoping to. I can't keep banging my head against Captain Toad, so it's just one of those that I'm going to pick up every couple of days and try and make my way through that maze, and at some point I'll, have the lucky run. But I think this week is going to be Dragon Age and Kentucky Route Zero as I try and basically I've got till Friday to finish out, sort of my top 10 list before, sort of holiday stuff starts taking over and vacations start taking over. So I don't.
Oh God, I got to write mine still.
I don't have a lot of time.
We don't have a lot of time.
No.
There's no more time. We're out of time.
It's Friday. I mean, I might poke at it, after that, but I kind of need to at least get my ducks in a row by then if I don't want to be writing on Christmas Eve, which I've done in the past, and that's not fun.
No, it's not. Nobody you're with is happy that you are doing that when that happens.
No. So yeah, that's kind of my plan for the week. But we got a bunch of questions from people they submitted to my Tumblr because no news, no stuff happened over the weekend.
It's almost like this time of year is sort of bad for news.
yeah, you might say that could be the case, but the people, they always have the questions. So I'm going to pull these from folks that sent some stuff on Sunday to my Tumblr account. We'll start with one that really just cuts to the heart of everything. For the morning show from Izzy. Hey, Patrick and Alex, what setting do you guys cook toast at? Do you like warm bread or charred blackness?
I tend to go more in the middle of that, but I maybe lean just a single tick up from the middle ground. So like a single tick toward charred blackness. I like a real crispy toast, but not actually black, like not actually charred.
I'm on the same page as you, and I would say probably like one of the most torturous things that can happen when you get a new toaster or when a toaster starts going bad is learning what those settings are, because basically you might kill half a thing of bread figuring out what the ideal toast setting is before you land on the one you like.
Yeah,
that's frustrating.
So we have a toaster oven, which was not something that I had ever had prior to this. We
Oh.
always had toasters growing up, but my girlfriend already had a toaster oven when we moved in together. That's a whole other thing. Not that bad, and in fact, toasts everything exactly the way I like it. I was very unaccustomed to having to like put a thing into a tray and then press a button as opposed to just chunk, then toast. That's it. It's just a different thing.
Toaster ovens are more versatile. You can do more with
They
them.
are. You can definitely put more things in there.
Like, if you have
Pizza. You can
I
put
don't
pizza
own
in a
one.
toaster oven.
What?
Pizza.
Yes, especially leftover pizza
Mm-hmm.
that you may ideally want to put in the oven, but the oven is a 20-minute process in order to warm that pizza up. Whereas the toaster oven, it's going to taste better than microwave, but it's only going to take you microwave levels of time to get that pizza warm.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get a toaster oven. You're making a good argument. I haven't had one since.
I've grown to like it.
Like garlic bread in a toaster oven, probably pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have like a modern toaster oven or like what's the?
It's a pretty old one.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't even know what a modern toaster oven looks like, but the one that my roommate had in college was like something his parents disowned. That who knows could have had faulty electricity, but it worked fine. It made our food. I put my cheese sticks in there.
Oh man, I want some cheese sticks.
I love mozzarella sticks.
Fuck yeah.
Anonymous asks, "Hey guys, love the show. Now that you've done your Game of the Year deliberations, where do games like the Talos Principle fit in? Obviously, no one has played that before starting Game of the Year, and it won't be eligible next year. But by all accounts, it's a fantastic game. Is there some kind of contingency plan for the situation, or is it just an unfortunate issue of releasing so late in the year?"
There's no contingency plan. There's never a contingency plan. Who do you think you're talking to here? Who do you think you're watching right now? By and large, when it comes to games like this, and granted, I've only been in on a few of the Game of the Year deliberations, but it seems like that is where the 2015, 2014 Game of the Year award category, that's kind of what it's built for. Like games we either forgot about or that were brought back to the surface in a given year. That's kind of where something like that fit in. Talos Principle is something I would definitely like to play at some point, but obviously we're going to get to it before Game of the Year. Elegy for a Dead World is another example of a game that I very much wanted to play, but didn't come out until after we'd already done our stuff. So, there will be a chance to recognize those games. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be this year.
Yeah, they sort of fall out of contention for being a Game of the Year candidate just because at some point you have to set guidelines for when a game is going to be eligible for that stuff, and that's like you said, that's why we have 2013's to that, or we have a way of recognizing games from the previous year to sort of tip our hat to them if they manage to hold our attention despite going out in a previous year. And in some cases, like with Windjammers winning in previous years, sometimes it's for completely other types of years, not even necessarily the previous year. But we try and take that into account. But it's it's unfortunate. I get it from the perspective of the company that makes those games, in which hey, there are Steam sales going on. There are people are going to be on break. Maybe they finished the fall games. There are reasons to release those games at that time. It just unfortunately for the way we do Game of the Year, in which we want to get it out before the year is up, as opposed to say, like the Oscars, right? Like the Oscars, if you're releasing in December, you're doing it at the prime time for Oscar consideration because they, don't. What the Oscars are usually in March, right? I think March is
March, April, sometime maybe late
February, springish, late winter.
Yeah.
So that makes sense for them, but unfortunately, the video game Oscars, also known as the Game of the Year awards for Giant Bomb, sorry, just doesn't work out. Anonymous asks, any good Christmas/holiday memories, or I should say, let's modify that. Terrible memories, and I guess if they don't have to relate to video games, but maybe they should be.
I don't have any really terrible Christmas memories. My Christmases, by and large, growing up, were pretty mundane but pleasant. I usually got at least one thing that I wanted for Christmas. My parents were very good about that stuff. I don't have any disastrous memories of trees catching on fire or blizzards like caving in our roof or anything fun like that. Man, every Christmas I've had has actually been kind of boring, come to think of it. It's just been like, cool, family time, fun, yay. And it's like, that's nice. I don't have any good trauma.
Yeah, I don't have any good, no drunk Uncle Mike funny stories to share. But the year that for Christmas my brother and I got the PlayStation 1, the console that most people got.
I'm vaguely aware of this console, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so my parents got that. That was like that's like pretty much all we got. That was like the gift for my brother and I. And then, my mom probably. I remember there being a lot of gifts, but it was a lot of just, a dollar store things so that we had more to open.
A lot of tchotchkes and stuff.
A lot of tchotchkes because there were, like a lot of really young kids that were also, like we went to my grandma's, and so,
right.
When you have like 5-year-olds that are opening gifts, like that's like a 2-hour process opening all of those cheap toys and things like that. So, my parents had other stuff for us to open along the way. But so we opened this PlayStation 1, and I think we got a copy of Game Day, right? Was that the football game?
Oh, yeah, that was the 989 Studios game.
Mm-hmm. And so we had a copy of Game Day and a copy of Wipeout, I think, were the 2 games that we got with the PlayStation 1. And the problem was that my grandma had a really old TV, and this was still in an era in which you were regularly buying RF adapters.
Oh, yeah.
To connect the console to the sort of cable.
My grandma had one of those TVs for many, many years.
Everyone had one of those, and I long was hooking up game consoles to RF adapters, probably until the, late into the PlayStation 1, N64 era when we had a TV that had a regular AV plug-in, and so
right.
My parents didn't account for this, which totally understood. Like I get in retrospect why they didn't think of it, but so there was no way to plug in this PlayStation that my parents had bought for us and was the only real gift we had for Christmas, and so my dad went out, on Christmas trying to find some store that was open that was selling an RF adapter and just could not find it. And I think we ended up we rigged up something really strange, which was there was a camera that we had that had an AV in, and we were able to play parts of the PlayStation through a recording function on a camera until the day after Christmas that we were able to go out and buy an RF adapter and actually play it on a TV. But it was a tense Christmas, given that I felt bad for probably being a total whiner about it at the time, but in retrospect, as I'm older, understand why my parents maybe overlooked the TV adapter equation of buying the PlayStation.
But when you're how old were you? 12 years old, maybe even a little younger at that point. Yeah. You don't consider the logistics involved. You want your gift now, and that is just kind of the way you're thinking about it. So I think it's forgivable for your age, and that you understand now later in life. I think it's all good.
Lone Star is actually in the chat pointing out exactly what I did, which is he wants to say he rigged up a system where he ran a camera to a VCR to a TV.
Oh, wow.
I think I might have actually done something with a VCR. The VCR had yes, there was something. I can't remember exactly. I figured it out. I can't remember exactly how I rigged it up, but it was basically running the PlayStation as a pass-through to another device, which then fed into the TV. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along those lines. Yeah.
You know what I just realized?
Mm-hmm.
And this, I don't know. Maybe this isn't actually that odd, but we never had a camcorder growing up.
Yeah.
Ever. We never owned one. All my friends, all their parents, always had video cameras, and they were always videotaping shit. My parents never had one.
Are you having a moment?
I don't know. Is that weird? I feel like maybe that's weird. I don't know if it is or not.
Yeah, I mean, most families I knew had a video camera, but I don't know. You don't need one.
We had a VCR,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just I mostly used it to watch videos or movies that my dad taped off HBO. Like we never like recorded home movies.
Well, that's okay. You get
All right.
refilmed enough at Giant Bomb to make up for it.
I'm basically what I'm asking is, did I miss something in my childhood? Like, was being videotaped by your parents like did some sort of like traumatic childhood ritual that I should have gone through that I didn't, or
I don't
was
know,
that is that actually
traumatic.
not that big of a deal?
I don't. I just,
I
being
don't know.
friends
I
is
mean,
very
having your
passive.
parents like filming every single little thing that every mild accomplishment or embarrassment you have in any sort of public space, I have to imagine that would be weird.
Yeah, you're too young. You're not paying attention.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Let's see. Um, Anonymous says, "Hey guys, I'm a 20 plus year long or 20 plus year PC dedicated PC gamer who's looking to switch to a console due to carpal tunnel. That
Mm.
sucks, man. One thing that's bugging me is a lack of support and access to classic games. If I want to keep playing Deus Ex, I'll have to buy an old PS2 and a used copy on eBay. Can you imagine a classic movie requiring you to buy a VHS player? My question is, do you think consoles will ever solve the preservation and access issue with its history?"
I think if one thing we've learned from this most recent console generation is that the companies that are making video game consoles right now don't really care about that very much. Nintendo probably seems like the one that cares the most, but their way of going about it is to continue to sell you games via the Virtual Console, including games you may have bought on previous Nintendo platforms. As far as Microsoft and Sony goes, I mean, remember that quote from Don Matrick, who admittedly is no longer there, but remember his whole "if you're backwards compatible, you're backward" thing, like that. Yeah, they don't care about that stuff. They're interested in getting you onto the newest hotness, and they're interested in getting you to buy games for that thing. If they can find a way to sell you old games piecemeal for a profit, then they will do it. But in general, archiving is not really what they're all about. I would ask if he has considered maybe trying to track down like a wired Xbox 360 controller or something, or even a PlayStation 4 controller with that driver, that fan-made driver that's out there that lets you play it on the PC. So maybe you don't have to abandon those things. Like, I don't know what the compatibility is with those older games. Like, maybe those controllers don't work. I'm not sure, but maybe it's worth a shot. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem, with a game like Deus Ex is that you could map stuff to a controller, but I don't.
But it wouldn't be right.
It wouldn't fit. Well, there's just interface stuff that wouldn't map. Or I don't know. I'm not sure how advanced Joy to Key is on stuff like that. But my guess is like clicking and dragging stuff probably wouldn't work nearly as well. I have a vague memory that PS2 version of Deus Ex is actually pretty good for what it was. But that's one of those situations where that game's going to look pretty crappy as opposed to Deus Ex. The character models and textures will age, but the resolution will scale. As computers continue to become more advanced. So in some ways that game remains, slightly modern in that capacity. But that sucks, especially given the fact that he's switching due to sort of a health issue. But you got to do what you got to do. I think the perspective that's been shared on this site in the past is that I think game companies will always be pretty bad at preserving history, but there are enough dedicated fans that will release and archive and modernize that stuff in the gray areas of the internet that we will always have gaming history preserved. It may not be in a open up your new Xbox, pay $5, download that thing you loved sort of way, but everything will be emulated at some point. It's going to take a long time. Because the ability to emulate hardware becomes computationally ridiculous as the machines get more powerful. We're only seeing the early days of people even poke at, things like the Xbox 360, and Lord knows if the PlayStation 3 will ever be tackled in a meaningful way because of the architecture there. But those problems will eventually get solved in a way that allows most things to be played. Pirates will figure it all out. But the idea that the Sonys, Nintendos, Microsofts of the world will preserve that stuff in a way that we're all happy with, probably not.
I'd love it if they would, but they just show no signs of interest in that. When Nintendo does do its re-releases, it's always just like, here's 3 Virtual Console stuff, here's a couple of games we're able to license from Konami, have fun. It's never with like much fanfare or enthusiasm. It's just sort of like, well, we know you'll buy this, so here. The fact that what was it? uh, Earthbound came out at all, finally, after all those years. Like that, like think about how long that took. You know, like a game that people were pretty regularly wanting for that, you know, that platform. Think about how long it took for them to finally get there.
Yeah, and it makes things like the Virtual Console kind of a disappointment because I mean they're just ROM dumps. You know,
Yeah.
Nintendo's not doing substantial work to those games. It's different than a lot of the classic games that have been released on Xbox Live Arcade or PlayStation Network because they're incorporating new menus, like modifying those games to respond to achievements and trophies. Like they're putting work into those. So I get it, but part of the appeal I thought of Virtual Console was like it could potentially be a actual archive because all you're doing is just dumping ROMs. But if I have to make one of my top 10 disappointments of the last generation, the Virtual Console not living up to its potential is definitely up there because I thought it was going to be something a lot more than it actually became.
I would pay in upwards of $20 a month to be able to just sort of access that stuff in a larger database. Just all the stuff they were able to license for it, all Virtual Console games, just be able to play at my leisure. Just whatever games that is a monthly service that I think they would have no problem selling to a huge chunk of that system's audience, which admittedly does not have a huge audience in and of itself. But the people who have bought those things, and maybe some people who have been holding out, I feel like that's something they would be way into.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, a video game Netflix service would be rad. One day. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Hopefully.
Anonymous asks, Patrick and Alex, I enjoy wading through the hours of Game of the Year Deliberation podcasts you guys put out at the end of the year, but I do wonder, how necessary is that process? How different would the site's overall top 10 list be if it were just an aggregation of the staff's individual top 10 lists?
I don't know how. I mean, I imagine those lists would be different if we used a much more mathematical process. But at the same time, you wouldn't get to partake of our various lovely, straight-up asinine arguments that we have to have with each other about those things. And I get the impression that there are a lot of people out there who like listening to us make lengthy, asinine arguments about where games belong on a top 10 list. And I understand that there is some appeal to that. So I think that while you're right, it might be a much more fair system to impart some sort of math into the whole equation. There's something to be said for a bunch of idiots just yelling at each other for like 12 hours.
Part of what I really enjoy about the Game of the Year stuff, and I think it's both from the perspective of us, as an editorial on the site, and for the readers, is that when a list comes out, and let's just say whatever game is number 4, what's more interesting? The fact that it's number 4 or how it got to be number 4? And that's always been our approach with the recording and releasing of these deliberations is the process of a game arriving where it gets to is far more interesting than the reason, the fact that it's actually there. It's what games were moved out of the way, what arguments were used to push X, Y, and Z down. How did this game sneak on to number 10? Stuff like that, the stories that come out of the conversations are way more interesting. I think the lists themselves kind of boring, but the process of creating the list is profoundly interesting, and it continues to baffle me that every single website has these conversations, and we're the only one that actually publishes them. If I was running a different website, it's a concept I would have ripped off a whole long time ago, but somehow we continue to be the only one that does it that way.
I sometimes wonder if maybe other sites, and I don't mean this about every other site, but some other sites at least, maybe still think that their process is just a little too precious to be put out there in that way. Like they don't necessarily want people to like know all the ins and outs of like what was argued about, like what actually brought them to that process. Like they just kind of want to be able to put the awards out there and be like, look, this is our collective thoughts, free of disagreement or argument or whatever. Whereas we're just kind of a bunch of loud assholes, and we don't really care if anyone takes our awards that seriously or not, because we're doing them more for for fun and for the sake of the audience hearing us, say our dumb asshole things. I don't know.
And also,
I mean,
like the site top 10 list is in a lot of ways pretty boring because it is a amalgamation of all of our collective tastes. So it results in this weird mishmash of games that everyone sort of liked and enjoyed, with a couple of passion games that make it onto the list as well. Like it's certainly reflective of us, but is by virtue of being this weird hodgepodge of tastes and personalities and arguments and oftentimes circumstance that again it's how those games get there and why other games are eliminated that ends up being way more interesting than where X game ended up falling. And so that's why we've always enjoyed doing that. It's certainly great because it fills a content hole, but I think it also allows us to be so honest and transparent about how it got there, because especially if you didn't record it and publish that, it's like, how would you even explain? All those podcasts are a blur at this point. So it's nice that they're there for posterity and people can go back and go, haha, you were an asshole during that category. Good job.
That said, it's not like I forgot about last year. I didn't forget about Mario. I didn't forget about your betrayal.
Oh, it was worth it.
I will remember that until my dying day.
It was worth it. Let's see, what else we got here? Anonymous asks, last Friday you mentioned giving yourself a couple of days to forget about video games after coming back from San Francisco. How much of free time do you guys spend playing games or doing any activities somehow related to your job? Do you feel lucky or cursed? Thanks, and keep up the amazing work. Best regards, Eric.
Why don't you take that one first?
Yeah, I think you always got to try and find a balance. I think that's stuff we've talked about on the show in the past. The Game of the Year stuff is such a concentrated blast of video games, or at least, at the very least, video game discussion, that I'm just sort of tired of it by the time I get back. I've done nothing but think about and talk about video games for basically a solid 10 days straight, and it's at that point where I could play more games, because you can always play more games, and that's not always the healthiest way to approach it. Sometimes you got to say, I need to read a book, or even if just something else, like to kind of put your mind in a different place. Because I think it's really easy to burn out on that stuff, because you may have games you want to play or games you should be playing, but if you get to the point where that's all you're doing, it's really easy to kind of ruin the thing that you love, and that's something we have to be a little more precious about, given that it's also our jobs. So in some ways we have to be playing things so that we have conversation topics and we're staying up to date. But even in that frame of mind, we also have to be wary of wanting to continue being passionate about if just playing games isn't enough. We got to enjoy playing those games and talking about those games. So sometimes, walking away from one of the central parts of sort of our daily jobs is important, because it allows us to maintain perspective on it and to maintain a passion for it in a way that you have to be careful about. Because if you're in here this for the long haul, like I think a lot of us are, and we expect that we'll be doing this for some time to come as well, you have to make sure that you're going to continue enjoying that. So kind of stepping away from it is important. And it doesn't mean I'm not putting in a lot of time with it, because I certainly am, especially if you're talking about games like Dragon Age, which to even wrap your head around requires probably 20 hours before you can kind of figure out how you feel about it. That's no small commitment.
No.
And certainly sometimes make me jealous of people who cover other mediums, because the time sink just seems far less of an imprint on your personal life. But it's the thing I enjoy doing, so I've got to try and find a way to kind of make it work.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I tend to struggle with the most. I play a lot of games in my own time, but I think that I also have to kind of force myself to play a lot of games that I might not otherwise, specifically for the reason that you talked about, being able to have a conversation about it, being up on what it is the current thing. And I think that is sometimes the problem I run into, is that I'll play games for a little bit, and then in between trying to play all these different games, something else will pop up, and then something else will pop up, and I end up abandoning far more games than I finish. outside of review games, which I sort of have to finish. Like I don't end up completing a lot of games unless they are like my favorite games. And that sucks because there's a lot of games I would love to go back to and just spend some hours messing around in and screwing around with, but like I don't as often feel like I have that kind of time, especially if I want to like have any free time to myself and sort of do other things in order to kind of keep that sanity going. So that's the part that I still sometimes occasionally struggle with, like the sort of desire to finish things while also being able to continue and play new things and stay up on what is current, because goddamn, there is a stack of, like, the number of games I have finished from this console generation roughly equates to the number of games I have reviewed this console generation. Like, there are maybe like 3 others that I haven't, that were games that I played through on my own, removed from that.
Yeah, and I mean that's that's one of the consequences of the job. But I think even if even though this is part of our careers and what we do for a living, my guess is the kinds of people that are in this chat room right now, the kinds of people listening to this podcast, whether it's live or archived, probably play games just as much as we do. We are just in the privileged position to talk about it and to write about it. And so I think this is sort of a common thread for probably a lot of people, that if you are on enthusiast video game websites, if you love video games enough to want to hear them talked about or written about on a daily basis, I think we all kind of go through those spurts where, the games just, they're not speaking to us at that time, and you got to find ways to either, sometimes that's when you do go into the backlog, and it's like, hey, what, the games that are coming out right now, I don't want to play them. But the nice part is that there's probably plenty of games in that 30-year history of a lot of us being around that you didn't get around to, and that's when I find is a good time to kind of dip into that catalog and pick out a game that you always meant to get around to but never quite did. That's what I did with Spelunky and Dark Souls, earlier this year, and those games were fucking incredible. Both those games would be on an all-time list for me, and I started playing them during a period when there just wasn't much coming out that was really getting me excited, and so it was like, okay, now's the time to really dedicate some time to figuring those games out, and it ended up being super worthwhile.
Yeah. Take one more.
Yeah. Well, we started a little late, so we'll go a little after. But Anonymous asks, question for Alex. I see House of Leaves on your bookshelf. What are your thoughts on that book? It seems rather divisive, to say the least, though I've been enjoying the challenge of the book quite a bit. You should probably set up what that book is, too.
So House of Leaves is a very strange book that I will be the first to admit that I did not complete reading. I started reading it years and years ago when it came out. Here, I'm gonna go grab it real fast.
Okay. So part of House of Leaves is that is not just written straightforward. There are annotations all over the place. It is essentially the mystery.
I can't actually see where it is on my shelf.
Oh, you can't find it.
But yeah, it's a very strangely structured book that is not just a traditional kind of linear read. There's a lot of like I don't even know how to describe it. It's been so long since I tried to read it. I'm gonna be honest. It's a really cool thing that I think at some point I just kind of fell off of, and I never really got back into. So I don't have a real strong opinion about it one way or the other. I think it was kind of a neat thing that I started reading and then just didn't quite get into.
It's been on my perpetual list of, especially as someone that is into Lost and mysteries and things of that nature.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, you found it? Alex is pulling the book off of his bookshelf so he can better describe what's going on. Because part of House of Leaves is what? It's got annotations all over the...
Yeah, so if you look at this, there's parts that are written normally, but then there's whole pages that are just like this. There's it's a lot of it is here's. It's a very I got maybe 50 pages into it, and I remember what is going on here. There's just there's here's a page where it is written in this is the way you're supposed to read it.
So Alex is holding up a pages from the book, some of
Look at
which
this.
only have a single line. The one that he is currently holding up is basically written diagonally on the page. There
Yeah.
was another page that just had X's on it.
Like, that is an entire page right there.
There's another one that says, what does it read what that says?
Hear everything about the house suddenly.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Weird
I
book.
started reading this book when, like, about a year after it came out, and then I kind of fell off of it.
I want to check. A reader sent me a copy. I have a copy in my apartment somewhere. I should maybe check that out during my holiday break. That seems like maybe the type of book when you have a Sunday and you're just waiting for family to show up for some Christmas celebration thing, that just kind of leaf through that. I don't know if I'll finish it, but it's one of those I'd like to actually kind of poke my head at because I've heard about it for years and never actually spent significant time with it.
Yeah, it has been at the top of my list of books I need to go back and reread for a very long time. I just have not actually done it.
And basically, people are pointing out in the chat, like J.J. Abrams himself put out a similar sort of book called S a couple of years back that is similar style to House of Leaves. I have also not. I bought that because J.J. Abrams put out a book. I'm a robot. I'll buy it. But I have not actually looked at it yet.
Fun trivia fact about the author of this book.
Mm-hmm.
His sister is the 1990s recording artist Poe.
Really?
They were the woman who sang that Angry Johnny song.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's all the good questions. There were probably other good questions. I just didn't have time to pull them out. What are you getting up to this week? What do you have to do in this final week of giant bombing?
So I have to write my top 10 list, which I'm going to do.
You got to figure out you have to figure it out, or do you have to just write it?
So I have a list of about 12 games. I need to whittle that down to 10,
That's
and then
pretty close.
I need to write it. Yeah, I'm in a good place with it, actually. It's just that figuring out the ordering is going to be a nightmare, but we're going to figure it out.
Is it ordered? Have you ordered your list?
The top half is ordered. The rest is not.
Okay. So the important ones are ordered, basically.
The most important ones are ordered thus far. I might change my mind on some of that stuff. We'll see. But the bottom half still needs some work. So I need to do that. And then this week is the week that I begin editing our special guest top 10 lists, which have begun to trickle in. So we will have quite a few of those this year, and I'm looking forward to getting through those. But that's kind of my week as I'm looking at it. Our studio in New York is not finished yet. They're still putting in electrical, but otherwise it seems to be basically done. So I think by the time January rolls around, we should be good to go.
Did you read the guest top 10 list that I forwarded you on Friday?
Boy, I sure did. And let me tell you, I'm very excited with the result.
Kind of like reading the House of Leaves. It's it takes some twists and turns, and ends in a pretty good place, if unexpected.
Beautiful, just beautiful stuff.
So I need to figure that out as well. I have not done even the dirty deed of getting it down to a manageable list. I kind of have one sort of written out in my head, but I need to actually start doing the tough job of cutting that stuff down. So I need to do that this week. It's Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I got to finish that by Friday. So that is a thing that has to happen, Alex. One way or the other, that list has got to get made, and then I got to write words about it and
yeah, you do
justify some bullshit, as the case may be. Are you going to try and play anything else this week, like as part of that sprint, or you sort of feel like you're in the place where it's just a matter of putting this bad boy to rest?
Elegy for a Dead World is the only one still on my list to play, so I'm going to give that a chance before I officially write the list. But that is the only one left.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to try and put in some more hours with Kentucky Route Zero, and some more hours with Dragon Age Inquisition, and then and we'll see if that happens or not. That's hopeful. We'll have to see how the week actually ends up playing out. But otherwise, I may just be forced to. That's it. You run out of time at some point. You got to make that list, and we all have regrets. both in life and in top 10 lists. But at some point, you just have to make that list, and you just have to live with it.
You got to make that list. You got to put it up there. Once it's out there, you can't mess with it. It's just got to be done. You just got to make it done.
Be done. So, yeah, that's what we'll be up to this week. There will be a Spookin' with Scoops on Wednesday night, sort of a last one before a bunch of us take time off for the holidays, etc. Although I think I don't want to commit anyone anywhere to anything, but I believe there will still be people. Some people are taking off as soon as this Friday. Some people are taking off early next week, but there should still be some stuff going on, at least in the San Francisco office, early next week before true holiday stuff really kicks into gear. But that stuff will probably become clearer as we get closer to that specifically. But yeah, I don't know what I'm going to play on Wednesday, so if anyone has any suggestions on what they'd like me to play for Spookin' with Scoops, I am open to all suggestions. If there's some stuff you want to dig out that you've been yelling at me about for, at this point, years, and I have not played, make sure and let me know, and we'll consider that for Wednesday's show. But look forward to that on Wednesday. And then on Friday, I guess we could do another show.
Yeah, I don't see why not. We could totally do a show, right?
Ah, Ghost Cat.
Ghost Cat. This is the Ghost Cat. Hi, Ghost Cat. I
don't want to be there.
Nope.
All right.
Bye, Ghost Cat.
Bye, Alex Navarro. I will see you.
Bye, Patrick Klepek. Awoo.